All right. So when you think about cybersecurity, it's also important to think about legal regulations, compliance, and investigations. This is a domain in the CSSP, and so this is a domain that deals with, you know, this particular type of stuff that is very important to cyber. So here it just says laws and regulations are the source of directive requirements, basically organizational policies, and directive requirements interpret the laws for the management to institute policy and procedure to keep the organization and its employees from violating the law. And then security engineering and design keeps the organization and its employees from violating the law as well. So you can design in particular controls so you do not violate laws. For example, for those that deal with healthcare, there are particular healthcare data that you can't view, right? You need to have certain permissions and stuff like that. So there can be controls put in place to various accounts that they will not have access to that particular data unless required to do so. So now you have security engineering and design in place to make sure that you are not making employees are not able to make those mistakes on their own, right? They have to go out their way to violate the policy. And so you look here, you look at the top, you see law and regulations. Then you see organizational policies, that's below. Then below that is the functional implementation policies, so the instructions, regulations. And then underneath that, you have three separate items. You have FIPS, Federal Information Processing Standard. You have the process and procedures, instruction manuals, and then you have guidelines, the NIST Special Publications 800. These are all the computer security ones. The Security Technical Implementation Guide, SNAC, and SCGs. So you have these three that are underneath the federal implementation policies. Now, if we have time, I'll pull up a STIG so you can see exactly how a STIG looks. But a STIG gives you, I guess, the guidance in terms of implementing security in a particular device, operating system, very specific, what you should turn off, things like that. There's different categories of law, and so you got to realize that laws are different around the globe and even different here in this country. So civil law, this is rule-based, not based on precedents. And then codification, so written rules, these are like Roman law, the French Civil Code of 1804, then administrative law, regulations that sets the standards of performance and conduct. So FAR is FAR, EAR, ITAR. ITAR is international trade and armed regulations. So that's ITAR, SEC regulation, insurance. And you can see here in this particular category, in the civil law, you can see which countries fall under civil law. And then you can see which fall under common law. Now, if you look just at this chart, what do you see in common with the countries under common law? What do you notice about the countries under common law? All right, it's quiet. Don't all answer at once. So just take 2 minutes. Look at this slide. Sorry?
I was gonna say, I just don't know what date this is from, but is it because, I mean, for regarding the ones under Europe, we know the UK is no longer under the, what is it called? The European Union, EU?
That's correct.
For the ones like South America and the bottom part of North America. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, so you're close, right? So if you look at Belize, Guyana, the UK, these are all English speaking countries and former British colonies, right? So that's what you notice.
I don't want to interrupt, but is it because they have some form of like allegiance or like I don't know the word for it. Kind of not contract, but like a treaty of sorts.
No, you're correct. You're correct. So these are, they're all Commonwealth countries. So you are very correct. Because when we jump to the next slide, we'll talk about common law. And you'll see that common law is based on precedents. You have civil law, which is imprisonment, penalty, fines. civil tort, compensatory damage, restitution, or prison time. And you'll see here that Canada, US, Australia, they're all underneath common law, right? Former British colonies. And then when you look at Canada, look at Quebec, you see it has civil law, just like it did in France. So this is the part of Canada this is the francophone part of Canada, and the part that during the build of this particular country, a lot of Parisians were sent and some people from outside of Paris as well. And so you see that they have a different legal system. You look at Mexico. Mexico wasn't colonized by the British, so it was by the Spaniards, and the Spaniards fall under civil law. So that's why you can see Mexico, you see a civil law. Now, looking at the United States, what area is that in the United States? What do we notice? There's a civil law area in the United States.
It looks like it's mostly common law.
Yeah. But tell me about that civil law place. Where is that civil law?
Let me see.
I think that might be around Louisiana.
Oh, Christian, you're dead on the money, right? So Louisiana, what's special about Louisiana?
I don't know the full history of it, but I know that there was a lot of French influence going on there. I don't remember exactly why, though.
It was a French colony due to a venture that didn't go perfectly well.
Oh, I love how you said that so eloquently and politically correct. Yes, that is all correct. So this was part of Louisiana Purchase. And so you'll see that they have adopted the civil law system, and it's mixed with common law because this is the United States. So you have this mixed together. Now you have other types of laws, and I'm going to jump to this. So you have customary law. This is based on cultural customs, traditions, and common beliefs. So if you look here, you'll see the customary law is in Mongolia. Yeah, you'll see Mongolia, India, Bhutan.
Quick question.
Yes.
Does customary law have to be an actual law? Like codified down somewhere? Or is it just is it more like a belief kind of thing?
No, it should be a particular law because there's some countries that have these various beliefs, but they're not part of any law, right? So if something happens, it's like, well, the law says this. Like, no, that's just something that's been done for years. That's not the law. So it needs to be written down somewhere, and it can be upheld in a court.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you look at Saudi. So Saudi has Muslim law. That's pretty much all they have there. Look at Iran, they have some civil law, but Muslim law as well. But if you look at Syria, Iraq, Jordan, they have civil law and Muslim law. And then if you look at Israel, Israel has Jewish law, Muslim law, and common law. It's like all mixed together because there you have Jews, you have Muslims, and so you have a really mixed legal system in Israel. Now, you have a mixed law system, and so this is based on culture, religion, and customs. So you have some countries that will have multiple types of laws that exist in the country. So if you look here and you look on, let's say, the African continent, you can see in the African continent that it is extremely mixed, right? Extremely mixed. What do you think that are some of the things that contribute to this very diverse legal system on the continent?
I think it's from all the colonialism and like how many different countries just came in and claimed land and then put their own laws into place.
Oh, that's correct. So out of 54 countries, 53 were colonized. And so heavily based upon whoever the colonizer was. So that's one. What else?
Probably also local customs and history.
Yes. So in some countries there's I think Nigeria has like over 200 tribes and ethnic groups. So you have a ton of customary law. Kenya, you have the same thing. Like all these countries, you have customary laws, right? And these are all the laws that may have predated the actual colonization of the country. All right, so we have that. What else do we notice here? There's something else that's important to the laws. All right, so take a look at it. There's no rush. So we understand civil law, common law. But we have religious laws, right? How is religion on the African continent?
It doesn't show it on the table, or at least the right one anyway.
Yeah, well, okay, so it shows Muslim law, right? So that's weird. This is South Sudan. This is Sudan. That's Egypt. That's Libya, Western Sahara, Morocco. So it shows Muslim law right there. And this is Somalia. So that's Somalia. And this is that Senegal or Guinea? Okay. But you can see that Muslim law is big. Okay, so basically, if you look at the continent, it's like a 40-40 split, right? 40% Christian, 40% Muslim, and then the rest is like various other religious beliefs that are there. So when you have that, a number of these countries will have laws that are tied into so many different things, right? You'll have laws that may govern marriage. Well, if it's an Islamic country, then that will mean that particular law, you can have 4 wives. If you're in another country, I think this is like Eswatini should be down here, right? Eswatini, Lesotho, and stuff like that. Heavily Christian countries, but there will be laws that say, hey, based on our local customs, you can have more than one wife. So you have that, right? Or if you're going to get married there, you legally have to pay a particular price. Lobola is what it's called in Southern Africa, right? There's these items that are law based on that particular area, and they changed so much and so drastically. And it can also change how you do business, and things that particular, even what you display and talk about online, all that stuff. So understanding these different systems and navigating it becomes very complex, because now it's like, okay, you move from one country to the next, you got to understand what laws are applicable. Imagine the United States, right? We pretty much have the same legal system throughout. However, there'll be differences between different states. So we have to, okay, we're going to do work in this state. We need to think about what we can and can't do in terms of cyber or whatever in the state, right? So now we can set up organization, the employees, how we set up the leave, all that stuff becomes important because they'll be very different. In this country, we have like states that are right to work, right? Right to work states are interesting because, you're basically, you could leave whenever you want. You're like, I'm tired of this job, I'm leaving. However, the company can fire you as well. So I was in one of those states, and we would have massive layoffs all the time. So we would have like maybe 200 people laid off at one time, right? You'd come into work, all of a sudden people would get together and they'll say, all right, well, we'll give you, 15 minutes to pack your office, and then anything else you can get on the weekend. I've been in one of those states and I've seen that stuff firsthand. I'm like, good Lord, this is crazy. So for example, so say you have certain types of content that you're showing on your particular platform. You may not be able to show it in Sudan. However, you may be able to show it. This is Tunisia, which is a Muslim country, but you can see in Tunisia, I don't see Muslim law. I just see civil law. Yeah, maybe I have to zoom in, but I see civil law, but there's something mixed. It's a mixed system, but you don't see it like green like the rest of these countries. So they have a different legal system here. And that's important to understand when you are doing work or you're working with individuals from these particular nations. All right. So the Privacy Act of 1974, it covers U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents. Government agencies must restrict disclosure of personal system records. Government agencies need to provide individuals with the ability to modify their system of records. Therefore, the government agencies must establish a code of fair information practice policy on the collection, maintenance, and dissemination and sharing of personal system of records. HIPAA, this is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, and this is just the privacy of medical records. Why do you think it's important to have privacy of medical records?
So they don't start to ad agencies.
Okay, Naeem, go ahead, get your hand up.
Yeah, so we had done something about this in our data prioritization class. One big thing would be specifically insurance companies are those who could say weaponize your health status as a way to say increase prices or disadvantage you in some sort of way. So that's just the first thing that comes to mind.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned it. So thank God you're not old enough to remember before Obama came to office, but when I worked at this one company, it was interesting because I got more money, or I was shocked. I got like a $10,000 plus raise. I was like, oh man, I'm making a lot more money. I got these extra benefits. However, my insurance, their premiums they screwed me. So I was making more money, but I was paying more for healthcare insurance. And during that particular time, if you had something, right? So say I mentioned I had my aneurysm, and if I stated with a new insurance company, I had my aneurysm, they wouldn't cover me, right? And so that was something that was extremely big in this country in terms of having a prior condition. Insurance companies would try not to, take care of you, even if you had the money through the pay for it. And so that was a big thing. Again, that was post 1996, obviously, but that was a reality, right? So imagine an insurance company saying, hey, we're not going to do this because, this is a prior condition. You're well aware of this and stuff like that. My life insurance, same thing, right? So everything that they do a full-fledged check to see, am I sick? Am I smoking? Whatever I'm doing, and then they cover from there. And so having those medical records protected so people can't make decisions based off those means a lot, because your health records can change a lot of things. If people understand, okay, this person's been sick, we're not going to do this. Your premium needs to go up because of this. We're not going to cover you because of this. Maybe I don't want to hire you because of this. Years ago, when HIV and AIDS made, I think it was the 80s. Yeah, it was the 80s. I was alive, but I was, in diapers. But during the 80s, you had the huge HIV, AIDS epidemic in certain places in the country. And there were organizations and people that were known for finding out status and not trying to treat you or even work with you and stuff like that. It was just really bad. It was like, oh, we can't hire you because of this. And so it also protects against potential discrimination based upon what you may have. So the privacy of your personal medical records is huge in so many different facets, not just individuals trying to block you from being covered, but also discrimination and stuff like that. All right. So you have the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986. And this is basically encryption, right? Title I for data in transit and data at rest. So basically, data in transit means that data is being moved somewhere with a network or whatever, and then data at rest, data that's not being used, that's just there. So individual means a citizen of the United States or a alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. Record is any item, collection, or grouping of information about an individual that is maintained by an agency. System of records means a group of any records under the control of any agency from which information is retrieved by the name of the individual or by some identifying number, symbol, or identifying particular assigned to the individual. Now let's go to this individual, right? Does individual cover anybody outside of having a green card or legally admitted? So I think maybe DACA. I don't know if DACA covers it, but does it cover anybody outside that?
I would say by this definition, at least the one on the slide, it doesn't appear to.
That's correct. Right. And it was within the last administration, there was another, I guess you could say a step further, where individuals from particular countries could face issues, right? I believe Sudan was one of the countries, but these were deemed, I guess, countries where there were high rates of terrorism, suspected that individuals, even if they were naturalized citizens, they still could have issues. And that was something that was talked about quite a bit with the last administration. So it's important when you go through these, laws and understand, does it really apply to you? Okay. All right. So there's different classes of privacy. You have information privacy, collection and handling of personal information, medical records, credit card information, bodily privacy, a person's physical being and any invasion thereof, drug tests, cavity search, genetic testing, bodily privacy. And then you have territorial privacy, individual environment, private property, workspace, public space, and then communication privacy. This is correspondence between entities, email, postal mail, phone conversation. Is it a crime to open up someone's mail?
Yeah.
All right. What type of crime is it? If I open up your mail, is it like a local crime, a federal crime? What type of crime is it?
Federal crime.
Federal crime, right? All right, and bodily privacy. So drug test, cavity search. Do you have to consent to a drug test? Can I just say, hey, Bilal, I want you to take a drug test? Could I do that to Bilal?
No.
All right, Kevin, you say
You do
no.
have,
Go ahead, Naeem.
I believe you do have the consent to having the drug test done. However, it can be a requirement of your of some job or so, like say getting fingerprinted or any other thing. But at the same time, it's still it's well, at least I'm not sure if that applies if you have been accused or prosecuted for crime. However, I believe private citizens have that right. At least I think.
Yeah, you're correct. So I mean, there are times that maybe you get stopped and they're like, okay, have you been drinking? Do you want we need you to blow in here. You're like, well, I don't want to blow. Okay, we're gonna take you down since to place you under arrest since you don't want to conform. You have those incidents, right? And it's like, okay, well, maybe I've been drinking. I just would have hired my lawyer. I'll just stay in jail overnight and hire my lawyer, whatever. But yeah, you just can't dictate. Now, for those that end up going into like the military, wearing a uniform, you fall under different laws, and it doesn't talk about it here. You fall under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so you are property, Department of Defense. The government owns you, and nice subtle words. So there's no need, there's no consent. It's like, all right, here's a drug test. You got 10 minutes, go. We'll have somebody watching. That's a very different story. So that's totally different. It's not mentioned here. I don't know why, but it's not. But UCMJ is very different. Bodily privacy, and then you have territorial, which is individual environment, private property, workspace. So here, you just can't go on anybody's property. It's like, okay, it's someone's, territorial privacy. I just can't go in there and film. I can't film, take pictures. Like if someone's taking pictures, okay, you can stand on the sidewalk, but you can't be on the property, right? So you'll see a lot of people that do maybe like prank videos or just videos in general. you'll see that they have to be very cautious on where they are actually at in relation to the property, or they'll actually be taken to jail or something like that, right? Big issues. All right, so what's interesting when you talk about communication privacy, there was I call it a great movie called The Wire. Has anybody seen The Wire? No one has seen The Wire. All right.
Wait, is that the is it about the bootlegger? I'm guessing.
Oh no. This is about my generation. It was I call it the greatest urban TV series. It's about Baltimore, Maryland, and it's about the heroin and crack epidemic in Baltimore. And it's, some are based off real life stories, but it's individual. The story is based on this police organization, somewhat kind of corrupt themselves, trying to catch a bunch of drug dealers in Baltimore. And the drug dealers started organizing, and they started using burner phones. Are we all familiar with burner phones here, the concept?
Roughly, yeah.
All right, Michael, what would how would you use a burner phone, and why would you use it?
Okay, and like basically a burner phone is basically like a extremely cheap phone that's like meant to be like used like not many times. If in the, like with drug dealers and stuff like that, from what I understand, you'd use they're much harder to trace as they're mass produced and cheap. So if you so basically they would use them, and then if they ever need to, they can throw them away.
Okay, why would you want to throw away a burner phone?
Well, assuming people are like tapping or like finding out, trying to figure out where you're located, you can just throw it away and get away from it.
Okay, so when police want to conduct surveillance, they just can't say, all right, I'm going to start listening on his phone line. They have to go to court and get approved, and that process takes a while. So when they get approved to look after a number, it's like, all right, well, I throw the burner phone away, I have another number. So now they have to go back to the entire process. And yet every week or every so many days, I have a new number, right? I have a new number, no big deal. So watch The Wire. I'll see if I can find something, free online, but watch The Wire. It's a great example of how these particular laws pretty much enabled, you could say, the drug dealers in what they did in terms of communication privacy. It's just astonishing what they were able to do and what they missed due to the inability for laws to move quickly. Right? It's a great show. All right, so here, this is wiretapping, surveillance, Fourth Amendment, just what we were talking. And so here it says monitoring not within a private property, not okay if lack of protection, okay if in a public space. There's a series on Netflix. It talks about like the New York Mafia and stuff like that. And they go through the entire process where they talked about wiretapping and monitoring what these mafia bosses were doing and stuff like that. And they talk about the process that they went through to get approval and how they had to collect information and stuff like that. Right? Like you just can't do surveillance like on individuals. Now, there was a story. I'm trying to remember the actual the device, but there was a surveillance device that was used in the last Gulf War, and they actually used that in California, and they actually caught an individual who was dealing drugs, basically almost like dark web type stuff. The guy was like super successful, evading like law enforcement, and then they used a military weapon for surveillance and actually caught him. And so they end up releasing him later once he's able to prove that, hey, you used a particular technology that is not supposed to be used on civilians. All right, so interrogation, this deals with the Fifth and First Amendment. This is self-incrimination, mandated questioning, not okay, not on personal affiliation or to organizations, not on political views or associations, not on disabilities. What you'll notice in terms of interviewing, I think you can ask any question as long as it doesn't relate to disability. So a lot of times you'll take these courses and you'll learn like, oh, they can't ask this, or someone will say that. But in reality, there's only very few things that they can't ask you about. Like there's some unethical things they can't ask you about, or they shouldn't. But believe the only one is really just disabilities. And not on medical health information. So that is with interrogation. Now, this is just with the United States. This is just with the United States, right? And same thing, this is applicable to the military here as well. So in terms of interrogation, where have people in the past been interrogated? You can just give me the country or the island.
Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo Bay. And why do you think it happened in Guantanamo Bay?
Outside of the country and or relatively outside the country, which means which means less restrictions. It's also far enough away that less questions can be asked.
Correct. Right? All right. So here is just talking about understanding of harmful activities. And this is with information processing. So aggregation, not okay for a rap sheet, but okay for convicted sex offenders, right? So if I say, hey, you've done X, Y, and Z, and I'm using this for a rap sheet, however, it is okay for convicted sex offenders, right? Why do you think it's okay for convicted sex offenders? First of all, why would you want to have aggregation for convicted sex offenders? All right, I got the meeting chat open in case anyone types in there. But yeah, so here with sex offenders, repeat, right? So, you know, unfortunately, a lot of these individuals will have repeated behaviors, and it's okay to say, hey, you know, this is a sex offender. This individual is a danger to society. And the Naeem says lack of aggregation would pose a risk to the community of large. Yes, for sex offenders, yes, because, you know, it's been shown repeat and stuff like that. Okay, identification. So here it says President Roosevelt and Congress promised that Social Security card would be kept confidential and not for identification purposes. There's the Social Security Act of 1935, and a standard universal identifier is not okay. So Social Security number. So in the military, this is back when I went to basic training in 2000. Yeah, 2000. So on my military bag had Dawson Maurice and my Social Security number across the back. It was across the back, right? Everyone knew everyone's social because it was on the back. Now, your Social Security number tells a lot about you, right? So I'm pulling it up now. All right, the first 3 digits is called the area number. The second 2 digits is the group number, and the final 4 digits is the serial number. I'm actually going to give you a link so you can see exactly what the Social Security number means. So the area number is assigned by a geographical region. So it gives you the region. The group number, it says it ranges from 0, 1 to 99, not in particular order. And these are numbers that are allocated to a state. So a Social Security number gives quite a bit of information about an individual. Right? But the intent for Social Security numbers, was it not for identification purposes, but Social Security numbers are used pretty much in everywhere. You open up a bank, I mean, every documentation asks for a Social Security number. Just recently asked for the last 4, but everybody asks for the SSN. It's needed for everything. In security, it just says need ways to handle and protect personal information, Fair Information Practice, Privacy Act, GOB, HIPAA, secondary use, need ways to limit the secondary use of information, exclusion, failure to provide individuals with notice and input about their records. Breach of confidentiality, okay if it's related to public interest, infectious disease, and it's okay if it's shared with a third party. And then it talks about disclosure, exposure, increased accessibility, blackmail, appropriation, distortion. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act of 1984 talks about a number of criminal offenses: knowingly accessing a computer without authorization to obtain national security data, intentionally accessing a computer without authorization to obtain information contained in a financial record of a financial institution or contained in a file of a consumer reporting agency on a consumer, information from any department or agency in the United States, information from any protected computer if the conduct involves an interstate or foreign communication. When you access any like the Department of Defense or .mil site, you'll get a banner that comes up that puts all the stuff here and says what you can and can't do, that they're monitoring. Maybe they have some Army cyber organization or Army intel organization monitoring activities and whereabouts once you actually access that particular page. And they let you know that, hey, you're going to be under Uniform Code of Military Justice once you enter this government particular site. And then intentionally assessing without authorization a government computer and affecting the use of a government's operation of the computer. List of criminal offenses: knowingly accessing a computer with the intent to defraud and thereby obtain anything of value. And this is extremely broad, right? Accessing a computer with the intent to defraud and thereby obtaining anything of value. So if it was just like $5, it is still a major crime. That's how broad this statement is written. So it's important to understand, like, the statement is written broad as a catch-all, right? So a catch-all is basically a statement is written for any type of negative behavior that individuals can be charged with. Knowingly and with the intent to defraud, trafficking in a password or similar information through which a computer may be accessed without authorization. So gaining access without authorization, a crime. Knowingly cause the transmission of a program information code or command, right? That causes damage that results in loss to one or more persons during 1 year period, aggregating at least $5,000 in value, modification or impairment of, or potential modification, or impairment of the medical examination, diagnosis, treatment, or care of one or more individuals, physical injury to a person, a threat to public health or safety, and damage affecting a government computer system, right? These are catch-all statements. Here's EAR. This is the Export Administration Regulations. This says mass market and retail cryptography that can be exported without a license. This EAR part 774. Then here it just says member states can issue general inter-community licenses to export crypto product within the EU. So you can have a crypto product that can be used anywhere here, but if you bring it outside the US, particularly to European Union, you could be getting in trouble. When I used to send emails to my European counterparts, we actually had to mark data that was ITAR, which is Internet Trading Regulations. We had to have statements on it, and we had the data had to be cleared before they could even get access to it. Intellectual property is divided in two categories. So you have, it shows industrial property, so inventions, trademarks, industrial designs, geographic indications of source. Copyright literally works, the books, articles, architecture designs, engineering designs, plays, poems, artistic works. This can be music, songs, films, paintings, photography, sculptures, drawings, any of that stuff. So this is intellectual property, right? IP. What's interesting, there is a lot of theft as it relates to IP, more toward the inventions, right? So certain countries will spend a lot of time to get this data that is related to inventions, because it allows them to reproduce the same thing, and they can save years themselves by using something that's already been done. Right? Now, copyright. I'm not going to ask how many people are downloading things they shouldn't be downloading, like, movies and pictures, but again, that is against IP law. There are laws that protect the rights of authors. Now, there is the common criteria, Creative Commons. There's a Creative Commons license. And let me provide it to you. So Creative Commons license. And this supports open access. Even in journal publications and things of that particular nature, Creative Commons allows a particular item to be published and anyone can view it without paying rights, without paying for it behind a paywall, right? So if you look at a lot of the articles for class, they'll say, all right, well, you want to review it. If you're not on the school campus, you need to pay maybe $30 to see it. Creative Commons does something even better. It says, hey, this is open access to everybody. Anyone can see it. So I'm going to show you something that is open access. Here we go. I'm going to share something with you. So this article is an example of Creative Commons. It has a Creative Commons license, it's open access. You can share it, you can print it. It doesn't matter how many copies, but it's available for anyone to do anything what they want with, right? As long as they cite it. Meanwhile, a number of organizations will have you pay for it. I'm going to show you an example. It's link so you can take a look. And that's an example of one that doesn't have a Creative Commons license that literally wants you to pay quite a big chunk just to read it. But same thing, like with photos, if you ever want to look at photos to use for printing on a magazine or a poster and stuff like that, you'll notice that a lot of them will have a copyright and you need to pay to have their copyright removed. But there's a lot that are under the Creative Commons license that you can use, but you just can't sell it. So there's different rules that are associated with having open access and stuff like that. All right, so patent grants the owner a legally enforceable right to exclude others from practicing the invention covered, and it's usually 20 years from the filing date. The problem, there's a small town in Texas that's known for filing patents left and right. And so what individuals do, they'll create like maybe a process or a particular technology, they'll kind of describe it and they'll patent it, right? So no one really challenges them. So patents become a bit of an issue. There are, depending upon which country you get the patent at, it may not be enforceable in others. And patents are expensive. At least expect at least spend $10,000 to get the patent. And it takes a while to be approved. Trademark, word, name, symbol, color, sound, product, or shape, or any combination of those to identify goods and distinguish them for those that are made or sold by others. For example, if I wanted to make my own shirts and put Nike checks, right? The famous Nike check, could I do that?
Selling them, I don't believe so.
Okay. So yeah, I would get sued. However, if I'm in another country doing this, right? Say particularly in some developing country, would I be able to get away with selling a particular product like that?
Oh, definitely. Like when I visited Mexico one time, there's just a bunch of markets that just sells you knockoff plushies or consoles or shirts that mix IP use and stuff.
Oh, was it a good price or what?
I don't know. It's kind of stuff I don't like usually, so I never really bothered checking.
So when I was in Kosovo, I went to, what's that country? I went to Macedonia, right? So I went to Macedonia, and there I can't remember the actual perfume, but it's expensive. Oh, I think the bottle was like $400, but they had a knockoff bottle, and it smelled like the real thing. It lasts just as much, and I paid like maybe 30 or 40 bucks for it. Tom Ford, that's what it was. It was Tom Ford. So for those who know Tom Ford perfume and all that other stuff, I mean, I bought Tom Ford perfume, and yeah, I spent 30, 40 bucks and it was like the real thing. Now, could I have done that here in the States? Oh, Lord, no, not at all. But over there, you know, when you have these particular people that are selling these products, they're making knockoff products and stuff like that. How do you enforce that, right? Is someone going to come all the way from their country to say, I'm going to enforce this law? More than likely not. It's not going to happen. So they're able to do it because they weren't worried about it being enforced. So it happened quite a bit. So I got a lot of name brand perfumes that were definitely not the real thing. And I'm looking online, it was $400, the one I got. It was $400. So, you know, it's something to think about, right? All right, copyright, set of exclusive rights regulating the use of a particular expression, ideas, original works, or authorship. Copyright, that's like the papers you see, they are copywritten. And then copyright law covers only the form or manner in which the ideas or information have been manifested, the form of the material expression, and is not designed or intended to cover the actual idea, concepts, facts, styles, techniques, which may be embodied or in the representation of the copyright work. For that, it seems like you would need a patent. All right, trade secrets, a proprietary business or technical information which is confidential and protected as long as the owner takes reasonable security precautions. Right? Certain recipes, they are what? They're trade secrets. So as long as you take reasonable security precautions, it's a trade secret. It's not a form of protection. A third party is not prevented from independently duplicating and using the secret information once it's discovered, and it doesn't expire as a patent. So we say trade secrets, and we give the example of ingredients to make something. Give me an example of where you clearly see a particular product that resembles the real thing. All right, so Kevin, so the example I'm asking is, give me an example of like a trade secret, right? So a particular product that resembles the real thing that you've encountered, that, you know, is obviously based, or someone tried to duplicate it, and, you know, it's based on a trade secret. Or you can just say, in which ways do people, Pepsi and Coke. All right, Kat, can we hear your voice?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, we hear you. Okay. Elaborate a bit more.
I mean, Coke is like Pepsi and Coke are both like colas, but like Pepsi obviously doesn't have the Coke recipe. So they've like made some version of a similar product.
Okay, that's good. For those that hear, you know, you either shop for groceries or you aid somebody in getting groceries, there's always the local brand, right? So I go to Meijer quite a bit. And for those that are not from the Midwest, it's an in-between of Walmart and Target, right? That's how I always say Meijer. Like, it's if Walmart and Target got together and they had a baby, it would be Meijer. So Meijer brands, like, they have their own brands of everything, their own, you know, whether it's a facial product, hair product, a food, they have their own brand, which really resembles the actual particular product. And a lot of stores do that, right? They'll have, hey, you can get Hershey's chocolate, and here is the Meijer brand. And Naeem, you're correct. Yep, Sam's Club and Costco house brands. The funny thing is, Costco house brands, I'm actually finding those in other stores now. So some of these local brands, other stores have adopted them because not only their price, but how similar they are to the original particular product. But yes, Naeem, you are correct. So I am, you're definitely one that is helping someone go shopping or shopping yourself. Yes, that's what it is. Kirkland, you're correct. That's the actual brand I was talking about, Kirkland Signature. Kirkland Signature, I think they're in Meyer as well. So Kirkland Signature is everywhere now, which again, it started and as a house brand, it's now going everywhere. So yes, you are extremely on the money, as they say. All right. So there are three types of harms addressed in computer crime laws: unauthorized access, unauthorized alteration, destruction, disclosure information, and insertion of malicious programming code. And then there's three categories of crime: computer assisted, computer targeted, and then computer as incidental. So one, the computer is a tool, then the crime is directed at the computer, and then the last one is computer data from the criminal activities. So defining electronic information or data, defining intellectual property, complex legal decisions of technical issues, unlawful destruction of data, denial of service, and using a computer to commit a crime, aid or abet crime. Private sector, it lacks reporting, and then sentencing guidelines for white-collar crimes, right? These are just some high-level things. So some countries have no or poorly defined crime laws. What's interesting is when I was working on the African continent, the country that had the strongest rights for internet privacy and stuff like that was South Africa. So they had these strongest rights, where a number of other countries will actually actively monitor what you did and things of that particular nature. And then government may not wish to assist others in international cases. If you have time, you can look at the story of Hush Puppy. So I'm going to give you the link of Hush Puppy. Okay, that was. All right, so here's Hush Puppy, the Instagram influencer and international fraudster, Nigerian. But it's good because it shows how he did this crime all the way in another country and how it took a long time to actually get captured. Mind you, everyone knows that he's stealing money and he's flaunting it all over Instagram. And the crime doesn't just have to be fraud; it can be human trafficking and stuff like that. But you do have some organizations that will work together, but the problem is it's the ability to coordinate activities, and then, which is even scarier, is the amount of professionals, or the correct professionals. Naeem, you should watch it, right? We'll watch it. We'll make time, and you'll see the clip, and we'll talk about it. All right, G8 nations. This is the International Agreements on Computer Crime. You have multi-legal assistance treaties, U.S. law enforcement agencies, FBI, State Department, and working with other law enforcement agencies in other countries. The European Union Borders Control is Interpol, and this is the organization I was talking about. So Interpol, they have Interpol. They're in Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast. For you don't speak French, they're in Ivory Coast, and they do cybercrime in that particular region. And then you have a number of United Nations agreements. Now, the problem with the UN, they call the UN the toothless tiger because they say the UN really can't do much. So they have a number of peacekeeping missions, but if you look at the peacekeeping missions in a number of countries, what is actually being done? You look at the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, you look at the peacekeeping mission, and you still see people just getting targeted just right outside the camps and stuff like that. So I'm very my view of the UN in terms of countries that are supposed to be aiding people, some of it are just complete failures, and we'll talk about it offline. Here you have the Coordinating Committee for Multilateral Export Controls. So this is COCOM, 17 member nations, dissolved in 1994. You have the Wassenaar Agreement on export controls for conventional arms and dual-use goods and technologies. This is really interesting. Dual-use goods. There's a conference. It's SOCOM. Let me send you a link. It's Vice Guide SOCOM. And what I'll do is we'll take time, we'll watch these videos and we'll talk about it. This is a conference that happens in Jordan. SOFAX, yep. Special Operations Forces Exhibition. Going to give this small clip. We'll watch a larger one in class. So dual use technology. What do you think dual use technology means? If I say dual use technology, what comes to your mind? Think about it. Okay.
I would say like
Okay.
I would say like
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say with dual use, maybe something that has both a civilian and a military purpose in terms of its use.
Okay, yeah. Give me an example.
I would say, let's see, oftentimes, like drones, for example, can obviously, if a company was say manufacturing drones, for the government or so, or some type of technology, they would maybe have some specific line or so, geared towards military use with, those types of, something affixed to it that serves whatever purpose that drone would maybe need to do, or ties into some specific network that's proprietary to .mil or something of that nature, and then a civilian maybe product as well that obviously is far less capable, at least in that sort of domain.
But the drone use is perfect because that is perfect. So, there is a drone. However, that drone can be, commercial, where you're actually saying, hey, is this a remote control aircraft? But it can be used for surveillance, right? So you now have the drone that can be used for surveillance. Now, another thing, think about helicopters for emergency, right? For a hospital. How could that be dual use?
Well, in one case, it could rescue people from like high cliffs and like the places like California, but then like for military use, it'll be like on the battlefield, I suppose.
Okay. The other thing is that with these particular items, you could also take them like you have a helicopter for help people, but it could be another technology that's like when you think about like an attack helicopter, right? So what does it have? It has guns. You could purchase maybe a particular technology, gun, add it to the helicopter. Now you have an attack helicopter. When we watch the video, you'll see exactly how that occurs and stuff like that, where people buy things. Hey, this is for defensive, but really they just buy the technology separate. So they use that to get around particular laws and stuff like that. All right, so we are going to. All right, do you guys have any questions or any comments so far? All right, we're gonna go ahead and keep going. All right, so we don't have many slides going. Oh, okay. Naeem says nothing so far. Okay, so you have the investigative process versus the evidence lifecycle process, and we're just going to go through that. So we do have a course here. We have a number of courses on forensics. There's even the master in cybersecurity and forensics. And so this really touches on that, right? So the investigative process, so identifying an incident, preserving the scene, collecting evidence, examination of the evidence, analysis of the incident, presentation of the evidence, and decision to act. So here you'll see the investigation process, and then below you'll see the evidence life cycle, acquiring collection and identification, storage and preservation and transportation, analysis, presented in court, return to victim. Why do you think these two processes are very important? And why should we follow these particular processes? All right, so when you're dealing with collecting evidence and stuff like that, it's important to understand that this can be used for court. So you can imagine legal teams saying, hey, well, this isn't my client's system. So it's like, well, no, this is a system. We actually, we collected a system, we preserved the data, we made appropriate copies, our 2 copies. We know everyone that's actually touched this evidence. Here's the sheet to show where it traveled to and from, who had it. Everyone can be questioned. It was under watchful eye. So all this stuff is there. So, and there's a particular process, it's repeatable, right? So it's like we've done this process many times. These are the steps we did. These are all the things that came from the steps and so forth. So in terms of data acquisition, make 2 copies of the original media, primary image, a working image, do bit for bit. So copying all the data that's copied in the media, including anything that's hidden, residential, and then preserving the integrity. So you're just taking a hash of the source image, so it can later be shown and say, hey, this digest, it matches, right? If you hash the original file, this is what you get. And this is what we have. We have a legitimate copy, has the same hash. Remember, when you change just one small thing, the entire hash will change. So here you can actually show, like, look, in terms of integrity, it's the same exact thing. The copy is the same. Different types of evidence. So here it's saying evidence is any species of proof or probative matter legally presented at the trial of an issue by an act of parties and through the medium of witnesses, records, documents, objects. In the state of Illinois, in terms of having a witness, generally you'll need the witness present, right? They can't write any notarized documents, don't need to be present and stuff like that. Admissibility of evidence. So evidence must be admissible in court. There's an entire process for getting evidence admissible. They'll have to present it. It goes to a hearing and then it's heard. Then the other party can say, we do or don't want it. The judge will make a decision if they do want it. And then once it's there in court, then that evidence is part of that trial. Preservation of electronic evidence is chain of custody again. Here's a saying that electronic evidence is fragile. Integrity of the scene, that's why you do the hash. And then you only have one chance to do it correctly. So that's why you have that process. There's only one chance to do it correctly. So that's why you have to use that process and get it done and be able to show all the steps and show that it's repeatable. Direct evidence is oral testimony by witness. Real is physical evidence made up by tangible objects that prove or disprove guilt. Documentary is form of business records, manuals, or printouts. Demonstrative, so evidence that is used in the aid of a jury, so in the form of a model, illusion, chart, or experiment as offered as proof. There are expert witnesses that may come in and say, hey, to do X, Y, and Z, these steps have to be done. Or they can say, I was able to recreate this, and this is how this is done. Right? So that is demonstrative. Hearsay, this is secondary evidence. So this is normally not admissible. That's why I said, if somebody says, hey, Mo took this. It's like, okay, well, you need to come to court and state that I did X, Y, and Z. Otherwise, it's hearsay. And the here says, depending upon the circumstance, business records may be considered hearsay as well. No firsthand proof of accuracy, reliability, and trustworthiness. And then there's a business record exemption. Information relates to regular business activities. Automatically computer-generated data, no human intervention, prove that system was operating correctly, and prove no one changed the data. Relevancy of evidence, proof of crime occurred, document of events and time frame, identification of acts and methods. There's source of evidence, oral witnesses, which is witnesses, written document, computer-generated, visual, audio, and reliability. Evidence is trustworthy and it was legally obtained, which means that these lovely tools that we'll be using you can't use that to collect evidence. You can't run SQL map, pull someone's database, see the information contained in it, and like, all right, I have the evidence against you. That's not legally obtained. So you cannot use that. Right? Can't be used. So something to think about: legally obtained evidence. Right? It's like someone posting on social media they've done a crime. If that account was private, yeah, you can't use it. But if it's open, okay, grab it and use that as evidence, right? Saying that this is what they're posting publicly. But if the account is private and you use some type of deceit to get into the account, then it can't be used. Minimize the handling and corruption of original data. Account for any changes and keep detailed logs of your actions. Comply with the rules of evidence. Do not exceed your knowledge. Seek legal advice. Follow your local security policy. Obtain written permission. Capture as accurate an image of the system as possible. Be prepared to testify. Ensure your actions are repeatable. That's why we have that process. Ensure that your actions can be repeatable. And then proceed from volatile to persistent evidence, and then don't run any programs on the affected system. That's why you make the copy and you do nothing more with the copy. Right? From there, you're just using the virtual image or the other image that you have. And then here, effective process of documenting the complete journey of the evidence during the life of the case, who collected it, how and where, who took possession, how was it stored and protected in storage, who took it out of storage and why. All these questions need to be answered. You need to show chain of custody. All right, so that is it for today's lecture. Any questions relating to today's lecture or any statements? All right, again, I'm going to be at the Kaplan Institute. Feel free to find me there. I'll be there. I will probably wait out there a little bit in the front. So you have questions, you're ready to walk with me, we'll walk together. And then, yeah, we can listen into the presentation. Oh, Naeem, you're here now. Okay. Naeem, are you in the Kaplan Institute? Or are you in the sorry?
No, you're good. Oh yes, I'm here. I work in operations here at Kaplan at KI. So I'm here actually in the staff area right now.
Okay. I like how you use the term. They're so hip over at KI. All right. So I guess I'll see you in a little bit then.
Yep. See you soon.
All right. I'll see you guys.